Hi everyone, I'm Jaelle. I'm currently a postdoc at the Naval Research Lab, and I'm going to introduce Liv C, who I've had the pleasure of mentoring over the past several months. Liv is a 9th grader at St. Francis High School, and she joined Magic with the goal of teaching younger kids to learn how to code, which is also a goal that I share, so I think it was a good match. So she came into the program knowing a little bit about Python and a little bit about HTML, but she had to dive into learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in order to create the games that she's going to present to you today. And as you'll see in her presentation and her demo, she rose to this challenge and created 2 Scratch-inspired games aimed at teaching kids how to code. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to her so she can tell you all about it.
All right, thank you so much, Jaelle. Well, let's see. Okay, this is my mentor, Jaelle. She went to Tulane University. She actually graduated a couple weeks ago, and she studies artificial intelligence, and she just completed her PhD. She's from New Orleans, and she likes to read, bake, and travel. This is actually a picture of her at the Stonehenge in the UK. She also has a dog named Buddy. He's a bulldog mix. And her favorite color is blue, and the favorite place she's visited is London. Okay, so my overall goal was to teach kids computer programming, and my target age was 3rd to 5th grade, because Jaelle told me about this project she had before, and her target age was a bit younger, but one challenge she faced was that these kids didn't really have the ability to read. And because I only program in Python and not so much in JavaScript and HTML, I thought making pictures instead of blocks was a bit of a reach. So I decided to use words instead on my blocks. So as you can see, we use a block type interface, which our inspirations were code.org and Scratch, which is developed by MIT. And basically, obviously, block type interface is simpler than typing stuff out on a computer, because all you have to do is drag and drop a block. And what we did was, for both of our games, we programmed the game itself without the block interface, and then we chopped up the code into different sections, and each section of code was assigned a block. And we use this library called Blockly, which basically helps us turn the code into a block, which, as you can see, worked out pretty well. Okay, so this is my first project, and it's a Flappy Bird game. If you don't know what Flappy Bird is, basically the pipes are moving left and right, or towards the left, and the bird is moving downwards, and you press space to move the bird up, and you're trying to get the bird into as many pipes as possible without touching the pipes or touching the ground. So as you can see, some topics we learned is probably the combination of HTML and JavaScript. HTML basically can load all the objects onto the screen, and JavaScript adjusts how the objects move and how the user can interact with the code. CSS is used to help HTML be developed, and JavaScript animation, that's just moving the pipes and moving the birds up and down depending on what the user wants. So as you can see, we completed everything. We have the blocks on the right-hand side, and we also have the screen in which the user can see what is going on in their game. This is my second game, and it's Crazy Click. Basically what you do is you click the button in the middle, that blue square, as many times as possible in a given amount of time. And one challenge we originally faced was a timer. So we didn't really know how to keep track of time, because we needed to make sure that the timer would stop once there was no more time left. And we found out there's this function called window.setTimeout, and basically that runs a given function a given amount of times, or a given every given amount of seconds. So basically it runs a function every 30 seconds or every 20 seconds, depending on what you want. And then obviously there's a lot more user interaction. Instead of the user pressing space like they did in Flappy Bird, the user is clicking the screen. And so we need to make sure the user was clicking in the right area. So we had mouse X and mouse Y, and that's just basically telling us where the user clicked on the screen. And if you can tell on the right-hand side where it says when something seconds is up, you can actually change the number inside that block. And because of that, we needed to learn how to grab information from the blocks and implement it into our code. So as you can see, we finished the code, and future work, we could create more games like Fruit Ninja and Piano Tiles. Those are just games that are pretty easy to understand and pretty easy to play, as well as code. Okay, my magical experience. Some of my highlights were getting the bird to move up and down for the first time. That was our first victory. Jaelle and I usually code in Python, so getting animation to work out was pretty difficult at first until we got the hang of it. So that was the first time we got something to move correctly the way we wanted it to. Also getting the counter to work, like I said, one of our biggest challenges that we faced was getting a counter in the Crazy Click game. Some lessons we learned is learning how to use pixels in JavaScript, not just moving the objects left and right depending on what we want, and connecting JavaScript and HTML together. Like I said, the HTML loads the objects onto the screen, and the JavaScript moves them around. On-screen animation, like I said, it was pretty difficult keeping track of time, user interaction within the games, and one of our biggest challenges was clearing the cache. It wasn't really a challenge, it's just something we haven't thought of. Basically what was happening when we were programming is our code didn't match the project that we saw on our screen. And so we found out that there was a problem called clearing the cache. And basically that just means that our code wasn't matching what was on the screen. And so we needed to update what was happening on the screen so that it matches the code. And so that was a big problem for us at first until we remembered, oh, right, we have to clear the cache. Another challenge we had was positioning of objects. What was happening was, okay, so when we first started programming the Flappy Bird game, the bird was moving up and down fine. So we were like, okay, next step, we need to bring in the pipes, have the pipes move from the right side of the screen to the left side of the screen. And what was happening was the pipes were moving, but then the bird was also moving left and right too. And we didn't want that. So we found out what was happening is we had relative positioning at first. So the bird was moving relative to where the pipes were. So technically the bird wasn't moving at all, but relative to the pipes, but the pipes were moving left and right. So then the bird was being pushed off the screen because the bird had to remain a certain distance away from the pipes. And so we switched to absolute positioning, and that's just relative to the screen, like how many pixels away from the top of the screen and the left of the screen an object is, and readjusting that number as the animation continues. And one issue we are still currently dealing with is Flappy Bird actually speeds up in Chrome. So in Chrome, the bird moves faster and the pipes move faster every time you press the space bar, but in Safari, that isn't an issue. So that's a problem we're trying to figure out right now. So this is my Flappy Bird demo. And as you can see, the user is just dropping the blocks from the left side of the screen to the right. And that's just pretty simple code. It's really easy for the user to understand. Yeah, and then when they press the run code block, it'll run the game on the left side of the screen. And now the user is just pressing space so that the bird can get in between the pipes. And on the top left-hand corner, there's a counter for how many times the bird has passed through the pipes. And then once the bird touches the ground, a end game will appear. Better luck next time. And yeah, that's my Flappy Bird demo. And then this is my Crazy Click demo. So now the user is dragging and dropping all the blocks, just like last time. The code is pretty straightforward. And then this time they have to adjust how many seconds you want the timer or the game to run code block. And then the left side is the timer, the top left-hand corner is the timer, the top right-hand corner is how many clicks the user has clicked on the button. And that's the final score.